how to get the house of your dreams in today's low inventory real estate market. There's not a lot of houses out there and there's a lot of offers going in. So what can you do to get your offer accepted? I might not know the answer, but today we're with the real estate expert, Eric Grayling.
Who definitely doesn't have the answer.
So before we jump in, I know we're going to talk about the agreement of sale. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of different pieces of it. We're certainly not going to go through all 13 pages for sure. But we're going to talk.
They're drinking their cappuccino, their espresso. Come on, it's early.
But we're going to talk about the different things. We'll save the price escalation for the end and the
Nice
RRT
tease.
form for the end of this. So you have to keep your eyes open and stay awake.
Yeah, good luck.
To see the rest of it. But first, before we get into the agreement, anything going on?
Nah, nothing going on at all. There's a couple of things that I would say that we're going to give away at the top of the video here, and that is you can buy a rosary and say a bunch of prayers. That's probably the best strategy. Now we're going to get into some real strategies on how to set up the agreement, but just to help kind of frame this market that we're in, and obviously for those that know us, we're in the greater Philadelphia area. For those that are watching internationally, we're somewhere over in the United States on the East Coast. We're talking about inventory that is, right now, it's about 3 to 3.5 months of inventory. And that is crazy low, okay? This is supply and demand, quick economics lesson. The lower the months of inventory, the less homes there are out there, which drives up price, right? Low supply with high demand equals increased prices. In average market, you were talking about inventory around 6 months. That's what an economist would call a balanced market. We're at like 3 to 3.4 months. So what is it? That's like 100% discount. So I don't know. I went to Florida State. My math's horrible. But it's wicked low.
Everybody's trying to follow you right now.
Yeah, they already fell asleep. So you just got to really understand. And there's really specific strategies that we're going to talk about.
Great. And to jump right into those.
Does that jump right in? 2 minutes into the video, we're jumping in.
Now it's time to jump right in and figure it out. So let's frame it. I'm out Saturday looking at a house. It's really cool. And I reach out to my real estate agent at night and like, hey, I want to put an offer in. He finds out there's 3 other offers. One, should I put my offer in? I know there's 3 offers in already. Is it too late?
I don't think it is. It's a great question, but no, I don't think it's too late. You know, I mean, until the seller signs an offer and that creates a legal binding contract, I don't think it's ever too late, right? So, but it depends. You know, what's your motivation? How much education? You know, are you really ready? The one thing I will say in the onset here is that this whole thing is a process, as we've talked about before. So, you know, if you lose the first 1 or 2, it's probably a combination of a lot of things, and one of them being that you're just not quite ready mentally and with all your finances and everything in order. You know, but if you have all of that, you go in and you see the house, and they got 3 other offers. Yeah, I think you put it in a bid. I mean, you got to give it a shot, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of us out there think, especially if it's our first time through it, think it's all about price, price, price. Price is critical. We know that, but is it everything?
No, I think that's the common mistake that everybody makes, and that goes to that escalation clause, which I know is our big tease for later on here in the video. But you know, it's not all about price. As Matt talked about at the beginning of the video, there's 13 pages, at least in our state, right? So everything in there is negotiable. And the mistake that I think a lot of agents make is that they forget that they just have to have a conversation with the listing agent.
What might they find out from the listing agent?
Well, they're going to find out what the motivating factors are of the seller. So if you're your buyer, you're the buyers out there listening to us, what can you be doing to make sure your bid gets accepted? The first thing is ask your agent, are you calling the listing agent? What can they find out? You know, well, maybe the seller's new construction is going to be done in 2 weeks, and they have to settle on this place before they can buy their new construction.
So settlement date might matter.
Settlement date could matter. You got, you know, maybe there's all kinds of, you know, inspection things, and the seller really just needs a surefire deal. They're willing to sacrifice price for what we call a clean deal. I'm not suggesting that a buyer would want to waive any inspections. Of course not. But you need to ascertain that information.
Great. So we slow down the process. We reach out to the listing agent, and we find out, you know, what's their settlement date, maybe what they want included, what they want excluded from the agreement. And if now we get to the point where we're like, all right, we're going to take a shot. It's Saturday night. We're going to sit down with Eric. We're going to write an offer, drink a couple beers, Miller Lite. Or actually, we just found out that Rail's favorite beer is Zima. Zima. So if he's ever done anything good for you, get him a case of Zima.
That's just wrong.
So after you sit down with a case of Zima and you're like, hey, I want to write up an
This
offer.
is after the offer. Let's just clarify this. Come on.
And one of the questions is, and you hear a lot of different opinions, is do deposits matter?
Good faith deposit. So typically as a buyer, you're going to be, giving some hand money to the seller. You're basically trying to get the seller to take your bid seriously. So you give them a little bit of good faith deposit money. And yes, Matt's question is, do the deposits matter? Absolutely they matter. Or better said, they could matter. They might matter. Okay? And the beauty about a good faith deposit is that the risk of you, the buyer, losing that deposit is extremely low. I mean, you really got to make a boneheaded play to lose your deposit from the time that you submit the offer to the day of settlement.
Well, let's just help a first-time buyer out there. What is a boneheaded play? I mean, so I know there's not a lot of risk, but how might they lose their deposits?
I mean, if you just decide to move to Cancun, Mexico the day before settlement, that's a boneheaded play, right? You didn't tell anybody, you just left town. So you're probably not going to get your money back.
You didn't show up for settlement.
You didn't show up. You lied about how much money you had. I got $150,000 in the bank, and you got 2 nickels. That's a boneheaded play. You got to tell the truth.
Got it. All right. So deposits do matter.
Deposits do matter. They could matter. And what I'm saying is, because the risk is so low, let's just think about it. You're helping trying to get your deal through. You have a seller, 2 offers, identical price. One's got $10,000 good faith deposit, and one's got $2,000 good faith deposit. Naturally, the seller and the listing agent are going to just have a better feel for the person who put up 10 grand. So it could matter. And I say, in a competitive situation, you want to put your best foot forward. You're trying to get this house. You got to empty the tank. And if that means putting up a little bit of deposit money that frankly is very low risk, it's worth it.
So you mean, so I could have a $2,000 deposit, but my offer is higher, and then you get someone else who's like, hey, I'm putting down a $10,000 good faith deposit. I want to show a strong deposit, and the lower deposit could still end up getting the property.
I definitely think that's out there. I mean, look, there's so many personalities. I mean, how many times a day do you just go by, wow, I didn't see that coming, or, man, that guy was a little off, right? It happens all the time. So you don't know this seller. And so to me, you've got to take all these strategies and put them in a blender. But your buyer agent, your realtor, has got to be working the other side, talking to the listing agent and trying to pull some of this information from them. What are the seller's motivating factors? That is step one. If you walked in the house on Friday, your buyer agent called you Friday night and said, there's multiple offers. Step one, what are the motivating factors? Write it down on a card of the seller. That's negotiation 101.
You mean you found different sellers with different motivations?
Absolutely.
All right, let's switch gears. Let's jump into inspections. Let's frame it as, hey, we're going to do inspections, but within those inspections, how can I do it different? What else can I do to promote my offer being accepted?
So the number one strategy that I see in a multiple bid situation is maybe you're willing to absorb a certain amount of repairs out of the gate, right? So maybe you could strengthen your offer by saying, look, you know what, seller, I'm not going to get involved in any tic-tac issues, right? Any little, small little doorknobs that are loose and faucets that, need a little tightening, things like that. Maybe you're willing to absorb the first $500 or first $1,000 worth of repairs. In other words, you're not going to ask the seller to make any repairs unless the aggregate amount of the repairs exceeds, a certain amount, like a deductible.
So, or even better, so we want to protect our buyer with repairs, know what they're getting, make sure they're willing to take. Every house has pros and cons for sure.
Definitely.
But is
nice disclaimer.
Is there a way to say, hey, I want to do all my inspections, and I'm going to do them, but I'm going to show you in writing that I'm either going to accept the property or just say, hey, it's not for me, and not get ticky-tacky, as you're saying.
That's a great point. And again, I think it just goes back to the more we can talk about this and work together as a team and identify what's going on the other side, on the seller side, the better position we're going to be in. So yeah, I think it's a take it or leave it type situation with your inspections. I think that's great. You're going to spend $800,000 depending on how many inspections you get, right? To figure out if this house is in the condition that you think it's in. And if it's not, you get to walk away or you accept the property. You're basically telling the seller that there's no middle ground there. That's another great strategy in a multiple bid situation.
So you might have 4 offers and 3 are what we call normal, which is fine. And then this one over here is the one that says, hey, I'm just being crystal clear with you. I'm taking it or leaving it.
Yep.
So that's inspections. And to dig in a little bit more on the inspections and all the forms, because I know you get involved with helping create them, and you run in your mouth and all that stuff. Is
Easy to do.
what is the RRT form? Or
Yeah, I don't know what it stands for, but no, it's basically what you're doing. Another strategy in a multiple bid situation. Again, in our area, so we're using the Pennsylvania Association of Realtors forms. This RRT form, basically what it's allowing you to do is to communicate to the seller that you're willing to absorb a certain amount of the repair costs for use and occupancy repairs. Like the borough comes out and says the sidewalk shot or the curbing shot, or you need smoke detectors installed in the house, something to that effect. Also, if your mortgage company was going to require repairs, sometimes that comes up if the exterior of the house had a lot of chipping paint or something. The mortgage company might want that paint to be sealed in a little bit better before they'll fund the loan. So this RRT form basically allows you to say, hey, seller, I'll absorb the first, again, you put in the deductible amount that you want, $500, $1,000, $250 worth of borough repairs, local municipality repairs, or I'll absorb the first or I'll absorb the first $500 worth of mortgage repairs. So again, another way to strengthen your offer.
so if I'm willing, how much risk with specifically the municipalities, and if you could touch on the state law that just changed with municipalities, but how much risk if I'm the buyer? I'm like, yeah, I'll do whatever the municipality say. How much could it really be? $500, $1,000?
Oh man, unfortunately, I've seen them 8,000, 9,000,
Wow.
10,000. So
It is a bit. It can be
Oh yeah,
a big risk.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, not to strike fear out there. Most of them are pretty pedestrian, but you never know. They have the municipalities have a lot of leeway. Fortunately, as of like January 7th of this year, some of that flexibility has been reined in a little bit, and we've better defined what unfit for habitation means in Pennsylvania. So we've basically, we're able to create a standardization for these inspections. Basically, they can't just condemn a house for no reason. They have to issue some sort of use and occupancy permit so that the transaction can go through. So a lot of things, I won't get into it right now, probably not the medium, but working hard between the legislators and realtors and the local municipalities all working together just to create some smart regulations that try to help us anticipate the issues that might come up with it.
Great. And as far as inclusions, exclusions, anything I can do there to help get my offer accepted?
Basically, inclusions, exclusions, just so you know. So what comes with the house, you're actually buying the ground, and then anything permanently affixed to the ground, which is usually a house, and then anything permanently affixed to the house. So that would be, your oven, your built-in microwaves, your built-in dishwashers, flooring. That's all standard language in our contract. I think what Matt's referring to with inclusions and exclusions is, maybe washers and dryers and refrigerators and stereo equipment, things that are personal property but tend to stay with the home. So again, it goes back to not to beat a dead horse, but what's the motivating factor to the seller? If they're moving to Hawaii, they may not want that fridge, and the fact that you're asking for it could absolutely have no impact on their decision. That refrigerator they may have bought last month, and come hell or high water, they want to drag it through the front door and take it to their new house. Yeah. You've got to understand this so you know why you're asking for the thing. So it's another great way to negotiate as long as you're asking the right questions.
Great. We've danced around it a little bit, and now let's get into price. So we've said price, seriously, it matters a lot. We know that.
Sure.
But there is a big debate about a price escalation addendum in our industry. And essentially it says this: if we have 3 offers, they're all $200,000. And to consider them equal is a whole nother Facebook Live. But 3 offers at $200,000. The price escalation addendum, then I'm the third offer, and I come in and say, I'm going to use this price escalation addendum. And what it says is I'm willing to offer up to $210,000, or I'm willing to go $1,000 higher than the next closest offer, not to exceed $210,000. You must provide the other offer in writing, blah, blah, and getting into the details. So it allows you to push up the price only if there's other offers that push up the price. To use or not to use, to be or not to be.
Yeah. Look, it is. It's a hotly debated. I think everything's got its place, but you can't use it as a crutch. You have to understand as a buyer out there, price, while it matters, is not the most important. The risk you run with and I've certainly used them in the past, I'm not saying they're terrible, but it's not the end all be all. right? Because what one risk you have to understand is that you're showing the seller how much you potentially think their house is worth. So in Matt's example, you're saying, look, I'll give you 210, but only if nobody else has, right? If nobody else is giving you 200, then I'm only giving you 200. Well, remember, this whole thing is a negotiation. So when you get into the home inspection negotiations, you get into any appraisal negotiations, all these things start coming up. If I'm the seller, I'm like, hey, look, you told me my house is worth 210. I'm not going to do anything, right? If you were willing to give me 210, you're not going to come asking for me to make repairs and things. So you're showing your cards a lot with an escalation clause. Now, you're in competition, and maybe that's what what you need to do, but you have to understand that risk. It's also very confusing. An escalation clause is it if
This
you have
real
a
estate
seller,
stuff is confusing?
it is. It's confusing, and to me, you have to understand that you're adding layers, and anytime you put barriers of communication up, it's much harder for people to make decisions. Right, so you got somebody who offered 210, and then you got somebody who's offering some escalation clause that may go up to 215, but only if it's raining out and the day ended in Y and the dog went out at 5 o'clock. It's so much confusion. You have to, as the buyer, you're relying on your agent to communicate your offer and all the strings attached to the listing agent. Then the listing agent has to communicate all of that to the seller, and then it's got to go back. And if you've ever played the game Whisper Down the Lane,
Long time ago.
yeah, I played all the time. You know that message, the more times it has to hit somebody and get converted, the more likely it is to get kind of convoluted. So,
And I think one of the big challenges that we see is the fact that I'm trying to read Chris, but I can't concentrate on two things at once here. The things we see: 3 offers at $200,000. Are they equal? What's different about these 3 offers? So we are assuming that the one that gets pushed up is better. What can be different about just 3 offers at $200,000?
Well, whether they have financing, how much money is down on that financing, is it a cash offer, the settlement, again, we go back, what if the seller needs to get out? What if the seller wants to find a house? In today's market, with the low inventory, we're seeing a lot of times where the seller is, really hasn't found a house yet either. So the offers are never the same. The price could be the same, but there are so many other components to it that, again, I'm not beating down the escalation clause. I'm not saying it's the worst thing ever, but you don't want to necessarily just go to that because it's the easiest thing to do. I think having a mature conversation with both agents, that's going to help you really, substantiate your negotiation platform.
I think one of the pro points to using the price escalation addendum is what we hear is agents say, well, yeah, I'm not afraid to offer 210 because you can only push it up if you show me a bona fide offer in writing that it's real. So yeah, I'll throw out 210, but you have to show me another offer. Is that?
Yeah, I think that is one of the positives, right? So it's you're taking some of the guesswork out of it. Like, hey, I don't know what those other bids are, but I'm just gonna kind of tiptoe, and I get it, But again, I go back to you're in a competitive situation and you're trying to get the seller to take your offer. You should do everything you can to just put your best foot forward, and then you sleep well at night. You give it everything you got. It's clear, it's concise. The seller knows where you stand, and you win or lose. And if you lose, you can adjust for the next one. I mean, there's tens of thousands of homes that get sold, so you got to keep it in perspective.
Great. And I was going to finish up, but that you made me think of one more question to ask you. I'm in a neighborhood, all
I could
homes,
go to bed.
Eric Rez asked us to start earlier tonight.
Yeah.
Last time we did this, we started at 9 or 9:30. He's like, can we start earlier so I can get to bed? So, not like a night owl like I am.
Right.
So, if 3 offers at 200, I lost my train of thought.
You're in the neighborhood.
Oh yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm here to help. I'm the only one listening.
So you're in a neighborhood. All the comparable home sales are 200,000, right? And it's getting pushed up to 210. But clearly the data says that, hey, it's hold on, never had a phone ring during Facebook Live. Hopefully you think it's still live. So all the data says 200,000, 200,000, 200,000. Should I be going up to 210?
Beauty's in the eyes of the beholder, So I think, and this is the difference. You got to understand the appraisal process is different than the real estate market process, right? So, they have to follow USPAP, and they got all these guidelines that they have to follow. They being the appraisers. you know, if you think it's worth 210, then yeah, I think you should go up. You know, you have to understand that what that low appraisal means to your potential money you have to put into the deal. But it's just one guy's opinion or one girl's opinion. You know, to say that you know it's worth 200 because everybody else sold for 200. I'm not sure I necessarily agree with that, right? I mean,
It can be an unsettling feeling, though, knowing that you bought the house at 210 and all the other ones in the neighborhood are 200.
Oh, definitely. You need, look, the moral of the story is you need a team that's going to help educate you, right? That's the key component here, because to me, it's about getting all the information so that I can make a decision that works for me and my family, right? So if I'm willing to be the highest priced dog in the community, that's not a bad decision. If it means it's the spot that I want for my family or just me or whatever my set of circumstances are, it's all about making sure that you trust everybody in the team to give you quality information. And then you, the buyer, you're going to send that quality information through your own filter and come up with your own decision. Now, obviously, your realtors can help you with that, but that to me is really what it's all about, because, you know, one man's treasure is another man's trash, or whatever they say. So I may think that house is worth 150.
Yeah, I think that what's hard for a first-time buyer, though, is that you get a lot of opinions. And you know what opinions are like. And it's really hard, though. I mean, you get people who care about you, giving your opinion, like, why are you buying that house at 210 when back in blah, 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 I bought it. So it's emotionally, it's just hard to make that. It's your first time through it. It's just hard to make that,
Definitely.
that call.
It's very hard, but that's why you got to go back to the trust, right? So if you trust in the team that you built, the realtor, the mortgage person, the home inspector, the title guy, you know, your appraiser, all those people, if you trust the information that they're giving you, you can send it through your own sounding boards and come up with a decision. It's definitely stressful, and there's a lot of zeros attached. You're never going to mitigate all that stress, but you can help process the information and make good decisions.
All right. So you jabbered a lot tonight. How would you tie this up in a bow and summarize this for everybody?
How I would tie it up.
If
they're still awake. Look, the strategy is making sure that your agent is communicating with the other side and understanding what the weak points are with the other side. We're not assuming that price is the only factor in a competitive situation. So you're going to do your homework with your finances, with your deposits amount, all these things you're going to get ahead of time as you're going through these houses and looking at them. And then you're going to be ready to strike. And when we say strike, you're going to put your best foot forward using deposit monies, inclusions, exclusions, settlement date, price, inspections, U&O repairs, mortgage repairs. You have all of this stuff at your disposal to help create an offer that's most appealing to the seller, rather than just pouring everything into the price and assuming that's the best way to go.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people just think it's cookie cutter too many times.
Correct.
I'm Matt. That's Eric
I'm Eric.
Rayos. He's off to drink his Zima, and I'm off to go to bed. Thank you for joining.
Zima sponsored this, by the way.